the injury. It's not about the injury. It's about the recovery. It's about the recovery.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Red Chimp Studios as we're filming the Paul Padda podcast. Today Paul can't be here because he's in trial, and so therefore I'm going to sit here and try to fill in, or at least attempt to fill in where he would be, and doing this interview with Laurie I'm already going to mess this up. Laurie Wilmot, thank you. Laurie is with Spirit Therapies, which is an interesting organization that we've come across, and it's about emotional kind of support and recovery, but it's done by using horses, which is what makes this so unique. So before we start talking about your organization, though, can we talk a little bit about you and how somebody gets a passion like this, and how did you get involved in doing this type of work?
Well, probably about 20 years ago, I got introduced to this through my sister back east, and I got to be the person to be like a human T-pole for an MS patient that was going through recovery and trying to help herself become a better person. And I came back to Las Vegas and I went, wow, that was amazing. Where's one? You know, so I started looking, I thought it was just the horses that I was missing, but something told me that it wasn't just about the horses. It was about the people. And ever since I've been really little, since I was 3, I've always been a giver. Animals have always followed me, always was part of me. My mom and dad would say, take the animal back to where you got it from. I know somebody gave it to you, and I'd say no. It just followed me. And so years went by. Through my high school years, I always had a dog or a cat or fish or things like that. And I always wanted a horse, and I was one of 5 kids in a military family. We couldn't afford that. And so I remember turning 16, and I told my dad, I said, I want a horse. I don't want a car, I want a horse. And he's like, no, we can't afford that. So back then there wasn't things like this here that I knew about, because if it was, I would have been at this ranch every day after school, helping out and things like that. But there wasn't a place like that. So we take 90% of our staff as volunteers. And I started at 14 because there's a lot of hurting teenagers out there that are looking for emotional help. And they don't want to go to a therapist. They don't want to go talking to somebody in a room. So a lot of times they'll come to volunteer, and I might be in a stall with them. And I'm not a therapist per se. I'm an equine specialist. So I look at the horse and talk to them and watch what the horses do. And a lot of the teenagers come to me and say, you know, Miss Laurie, thank you for letting me be here. It's just a safe place. I can really just be myself. And, you know, so as a young teenager myself, as being the baby of the family, I was one of 5. I was always trying to compete with my older sisters and be the best. And I was premature, so I had a lot of struggle with what they call dyslexia. I couldn't read really well, and sometimes when now I get a little nervous. I didn't know there wasn't diagnosis back then, but animals always made me feel happy. So that's where any animal pretty much is in my heart. So they always made me feel good, so why not, you know?
So you were raised back east?
I wasn't raised back east. I was in Minnesota till I was 3.
Okay.
So I moved here with my dad and my family, Air Force.
I see.
I'm an Air Force brat, and anybody that knows the family, that's what we call ourselves. And just found out the other day that, you know, there's a lot of community out here with our Air Force and our base out here. So it definitely is a good place to live. So I've been here since I was 3. So I can say I've been here. I feel like I'm a native. My kids were born here. And it's always been a place that I called home.
So have you always been in charity work or this kind of work or helping people?
No, for 25 years I was a hairdresser.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had my own salon for about 8 years. It was called Sweet Tomatoes. It was off of Tropicana. It was really fun. It was on my to-do list. And then I became an independent contractor and worked for a couple of different salons under, you know, your own little booth and things like that. I loved it. And then in the 90s, when I went to my sister's farm, this touched my heart. And I thought it was just the horses because I never got to have that horse when I was a kid. So I thought, well, it's going to be the horses. So my first volunteering was going there 3 days a week after working a 12-hour shift sometimes and cleaning stalls. And at that point in my life, my kids were still young. They still had things. They were a little bit older, so they didn't need all the supervision. They had their friends. And I remember scooping the poop and thinking I was throwing stuff away. And my metaphor came to my mind one day that, you know, a lot of things that had happened to me when I was a kid, I never talked about. So I'd be scooping that poop and just thinking about it. And I thought, well, every time I throw it away, it's going away.
It's interesting.
So my metaphor, I tell a lot of the teenagers now when something bothers them at school, it's not so much scooping the poop is not the funnest job, but think of it as a metaphor that maybe something's bothering you today, we can put it in the bucket and take it out. And so a lot of the kids do that. So yeah, I wasn't always in charity work, but I've always felt that I needed to give because I felt special. I felt that I have a gift to give to people, and I love to love people where they're at. Again, I think being the youngest child, I was the one that was expected to do things right. And a lot of times my older sisters were way ahead of me. So again, like I said, I think being a preemie, I didn't exceed as well as I thought I could, but then I did, you know, so this is my gift. I love to listen. I love to love the horses, and I love to give back. So that's just part of me.
And so do your children, how do they think, oh my God, Mom, this is a great thing to do? Do they think?
They love me. I work hard. I don't, sometimes they get less than because I'm working so hard for others, and they support me in every fundraising event. My granddaughter is like #1 raffle ticket salesperson. She loves basketball, so I try to go to as much as basketball as she can. That's my only granddaughter here in the States right now. My son actually is coming home today from overseas, so I'm really excited about that, to see my granddaughter. So yeah, so I give time to my family, but they love me, and they love, like the other day when I was on the TV, they're like, Mom's on TV again, you know, can we sign your autograph, Mom? But yeah, they support me. My husband's like, when I told him I was going to do this, he's like, what? You're going to give up? I mean, I was a good hairdresser, and I believe that, you know, I made pretty good money, and I loved doing it, but he's like, you're going to give all that up to do what? So it started with one horse and one child, so it's grown quite a bit now.
That's, you know, it's still quite a story, and we're going to maybe start talking a little bit about it, because I really don't know what you do. You know, I've read your website and everything, but nobody's going to be able to tell the story like you do. So when you got into it, how were you introduced? I know you went back and you saw your sister and came back, but did you just one day say, you know what, I think horses can help people?
Well, I went to the center. There was a center here in Las Vegas that had already been in existence. So they trained me. They were a nonprofit. So I was pretty much just the behind-the-scenes barn person. I knew how to ride a little bit, so I exercised the horses a little bit. And then one day I got thrown into a class, and this is for a therapeutic riding class with a special needs kid. So I was trained, and they showed us how to do the sidewalking and things. This child was pretty nonverbal, and that changed my life that day. I'm going to get a little emotional. The little boy looked at me, and he was struggling with his reins, and the instructor was barking stuff to him. And he just kind of looked down at me, and I said, just thumbs up, be like Fonzie. And now I'm telling my age because the Fonzie movie, and his name was Arthur. So I said, just like Arthur, put your thumbs up, you'll be good. And at that point, that kid gave me that inspiration that I could help just by helping him. And so we moved on with the session, and the instructor kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I almost walked away, and then I said, no, this kid really needs me. And the kid grabbed my hand and said, you can be with me next week? I said, sure. So that's when I started actually involving myself in the lesson. And then I saw how the horse gave him confidence, how the horse gave him strength in his core, how people around them could inspirationally tell them how to sit up and be big on the horse. And this is my thing I always look at, is I look at kids in wheelchairs or even adults in wheelchairs, and people look down at them. And when we put them up on a horse, they're in charge. They're the ones that can tell us, hey,
Yeah.
now I can steer this horse, and that sometimes gives them their legs back and their confidence back. So
Tell us a little bit about, just start at a big overview. So what kind of people do you help? Who comes to you?
all kinds. Basically, with kids, it's from cerebral palsy to autism to MS to emotionally disturbed to abused kids, military. I have post-traumatic stress disorder people that I work with from little to all the way to military. I'm just trying to think. Pretty much it's in the whole spectrum of people. If they've had, sometimes they've had an accident or things like that, they might come to us for some rehab. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a therapist, but putting on the horse gives them a different outlook of things. And the horse is my tool. The horse is just like us, that if we could walk like the horse, we can stimulate that whole movement. They can't get it at a PT or an OT or a swimming pool.
Right.
Yeah, it's three-dimensional work that the horse does.
How do they find you?
From our website, word of mouth. I've never really spent a lot of money in marketing and things like that because I always wanted quality. And I always, as a child, my dad always taught us, if somebody refers you to somebody, you're going to have a better experience. So I get a lot of referrals from doctors. I get a lot of referrals from other parents. And the military now, we've stepped our leap of faith, and I have actually one of my staff members is an advocate for our veterans. So we're going to be getting probably more and more veterans coming out because of that. Pretty much my whole time I've ever done this is just word of mouth. And I pride myself on that because I try to do the best quality work I can do. We do a lot of individual lessons, a lot of individual sessions because of it, because I think one-on-one is always the best. You know, you can do groups, and I have done groups. I've done corporate groups and things like that. But I think individually, one-on-one with somebody with the horse is the best.
You know, I want to take just a quick break here right now.
Okay.
And when we come back, I want to talk about what is a session, you know?
Okay.
And what is a session and what do you accomplish and those kind of things. I think
Okay.
that's going to be really
Yeah.
good to talk about.
Yeah.
So I just want to take a really quick break right now. And we're going to listen to Paul Padda for the people, because every podcast he likes to give out a tip of a little bit of information, hopefully a little bit of education. And so we'll just go ahead and take a break, and you can listen to Paul.
Hi folks, this is Paul Padda for the people with some more pointers. One of the greatest resources here in Southern Nevada is the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. And the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada puts on a lot of free classes that are amazing resources for the community. In conjunction with the William Boyd School of Law at UNLV, the Legal Aid Center puts on classes involving fields and topics like immigration, bankruptcy, family law, guardianship, all of these areas of law that touch folks' lives. These are free classes to members of the public. All you need to do is contact the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, find out the class schedule, go to their website, lacsn.org, and get a list of the classes. And I would really strongly encourage people out there who want to build their knowledge about the law, attend those classes. They're amazing.
Yeah, people with autism or with
Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's. Yep.
Welcome back to Paul Padda Podcast, and with my guest Laurie, we're going to talk a little bit more because we've touched on a little bit. We're calling it horse therapy, but I don't think we really still have an understanding. So we're just going to keep digging with you. So when you say you mentioned one-on-one sessions, you mentioned sessions. When someone comes to you, I'm thinking that they either have what we would call a disability. I don't know, I love your saying, you turn a disability into ability, which is, that's a great way of saying things. So maybe they do have challenges, but you also have, you say military, so I'm thinking that maybe these are, PTSD type of situations, and emotionally, these kind of things. So walk us through, when they walk in, what is it, is it ongoing? Is it one time? What is it? Tell me, give me some examples.
So the Therapeutic Riding is a 6-week session. Sessions of half an hour on the horse. When we do military, it's a 2-hour, what we call a gala session, which is a mental health session, which is a lot on the ground, and they find themselves. We do metaphoric exercises. So, for example, if a parent comes in with a child, they have to fill out their paperwork. I have to have a doctor's release prior for them coming, and I have to kind of do an eval on them first before they ride. So some of the kids are not ready to ride. They're scared of the horse or something like that. So we have minis. So a lot of times it might just be a grooming session for 30 minutes, or it might be just letting them see the horse for the first time. So I never push a child to get on the horse the first time if they don't want to, because it could be very traumatic to them. It's a big animal, it's new people, they're being held sometimes. So I try to talk to the parents prior to and say this, kind of explain it to them if they can understand what we're going to be doing. So a lot of times the parent will come out and take a picture of another child doing a session so they can kind of show, especially autistic kids. Autistic kids, they have to have a pattern to go on. And right off the bat, most autistic kids want to come touch. But a lot of times the smell, they smell the horse poo-poo and they're like, oh, and then the noises and stuff. Sometimes they kind of step back, but then all of a sudden it draws them in. So a session for therapeutic riding, actually we're teaching them how to ride with a therapy setting. I sometimes say, I never say no to anybody that's, oh, that child can't learn how to ride. It's called, they learn how to ride in their own way. Now, are they going to go to Olympics or things like that? No. But we do, little play days, things like that. We teach them the skills of the horse. We teach them how to make the horse go, how to make the horse stop, how to turn, do different techniques with them so they understand that. A lot of times we'll do fun activities like colors and we have on our fence line we have south, west, north, and east. And a lot of times we teach them how to go in direction. And I have one parent, she's like, we were driving the other day and she said we were going the wrong way. And she said, well, how do you know that? Because she says, Miss Laurie's place is west. Spirit's west. It's not east. Mom, we're going the wrong direction. So she came back to me. She said, how'd she learn that? I said, the fence line. So they learned other things. I've put into play reading on the horse too. A lot of times when these kids are in school, sometimes they're not doing the best. We'll have words on the fence line. Or I'll call mom and say, what are they struggling with? Are they struggling with math? Are they struggling with reading? Or just talking? So we try to push whatever the parent wants us, their goals are. So it's not always my goals, it's their goals plus teaching them how to ride. The mental health part of it, I work with a couple of different safe houses here in town too for mental health with women. That's kind of my, I'll put it on the air, I was violated as a kid, and something told me last year to help women. And we have a lot of trafficked women here in Las Vegas. And I've worked with 2 houses here in Las Vegas, and we've done probably 5 sessions with them, 6 weeks at a time, and had some graduations already from our equine. And a lot of the counselors say that they get more out of being with the equine than they do with the counselors in the house sometimes. So that's kind of my new, I want to call it my baby, but I feel like I connect with them in that way of a person being violated. One time, does that match what they have went through? Probably not, but I have a little bit of a snippet that I can help them with. And they become more open at the ranch. And my veterans are my heart. My daddy was a Air Force sergeant, major. My brother was a Vietnam vet that was lost. And right when I opened, I found my brother after 25 years. This is another story. It's all about your story. And he never liked horses. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna do equine with veterans. And he's like, well, I'm not going out there. Well, he did. He got to go out there one time before he passed, but they're lost. A lot of the guys are lost, and the horses don't judge them. The horses really mimic them. If they're angry, the horses won't come to them. And so I try to explain to them, you have to breathe, you have to open your heart, or that horse is not going to come and be your friend. And how that works is I just get to step back and be part of it, making sure everybody's safe. So it might be a meet and greet. So we might have 4 veterans come for the first time, and We have 4 horses in there, and the horses greet them. They pick them.
I think this is the fascinating part of it. You tell me that you talk to your horses.
Mm-hmm.
What does that feel like?
A gift, just a blessing. I've lost a few in the last years, and I knew pretty close that they were expiring. And people say, how do you know that? When you become such engaged with an animal, I mean, people, dogs, cats, I mean, they're part of your family.
Mm-hmm.
I have all these horses. Not one is different than I mean, I love them all, but each of them have their own spirit. So they connect with me, and I think how I pick them is by looking in their eyes. Just like I do with the kids. I mean, I always tell the kids, look at people, look at their eyes. I said, because you can see the truth in them. And horses just, I don't know how to explain it, just a blessing to me that I get to feel them. People laugh, they call me horse mom, they call me horse whisper mom. I just open my heart to them, and I think that's what it's all about. I think anybody can do it, to a dog, cat, or a horse.
Is there some kind of training for your horses?
Yes, I do Pirelli, which is a natural horsemanship. We teach all our horse handlers, all our sidewalkers, the technique for the horses. We get our horses usually between 9 and 15, that they've been a little bit seasoned. We use a lot of quarter horses because they're work horses and they're heavier built, so they can carry a lot of weight. But the horses get time off. Like this week was their time off week. And through our accreditation from PATH that we're accredited through, we can only work them 3 hours in a row. So they do have, I have the mental health for our horses too.
Mm-hmm.
We have a massage therapist that comes. We have a beamer pad that we put on them for stimulation. We stretch them every day. I have volunteers that come in and exercise them so their mindfulness is ready for the kids and the veterans. They're actually my therapists. I take really, really good care of them because of that, because they're the ones that take a lot of the blunt. I can see a horse in stress after too much time with therapy. I just kind of give it a break because a horse will take on our stuff.
So tell me, people really like to hear stories, as you know. So tell me a success story, or what you would consider a success.
Well,
or
by the way, I brought a gift for y'all, for everybody that's here. So when I launched my program in 2002, this is Anthony Jones. He was my pilot program. That's our military program,
Okay.
Horses Healing Heroes. And Tony was came with a medical staff person, a psychologist, and she said, give it a chance, Tony. And he didn't like me. He's like, who's this lady trying to tell me about this horse that's going to help me? And the first time he came, he was there for about an hour and a half, and he kind of looked at me and said, what am I doing here? I said, well, you're going to brush your horse for a minute, and we're going to just chit-chat, and you can talk to it. And so when he left that day, and he tells the story all the time, he said, I left that day with a smile on my face, and I didn't know why. I just felt really good. I gave the horse a massage, and I got to stand there, and the horse stood with me. He's still with me. He comes to all the events, and he gives us he wrote that book, and that's his chapter. And we've become really good friends, and I understand post-traumatic stress a lot more because of him. He has brain pain, and that's what his book's called. So we look at a lot of these veterans that look perfectly normal, even typical normal people that have post-traumatic stress. You're thinking that they're fine, and they're not. So with him, my success story with him was he started getting out. He's writing books. He's playing guitars. He's doing riding his bicycle, skateboarding. He's going overseas, visiting people. He comes to my events. He was pretty introverted. And he was even in his book, he says, I was lost, and I didn't know how to love something. Unfortunately, his horse, Buddy, passed away, and I called him. I knew I needed to. I said, he's at the veterinarian clinic. You need to come now, because he had a relationship with that horse for 2 years. So sitting in the stall, the horse was dying. He started crying, and I'd never seen that out of him. And he said to me, Laurie, darn it, you made me love. I couldn't feel love until now. And he says, if that's all I got out of this 2 years of you making me brush and clean this horse and run with this horse, I got love back in my heart. And I was in it. And I read that over and over and over, and I still cry. Because you don't know as a person how you affect somebody until they tell you. And I'm blessed to people that tell me I'm their angel, I'm their helper, I'm their listener, and I get to do it with equine. That's my love, and the horses don't judge them, and I get to be a part of that. And my thing is, if all I got out of it was love, I did my job.
You know, what you're talking about is true, and people don't understand this, and at this law firm, we kind of deal with the same thing, is that trauma is trauma. And trauma is something, especially the emotional part of the trauma, you know, that's why we say emotional recovery is a big part of this. Because when you're injured, you know, let's say that, you know, your brain has a bruise, has concussion or whatever it is, it affects your emotions, you know, and it affects your emotions in such a manner that anger, irritability, isolation, you know, because of that, because people run away from you. You know, so if you can find some kind of a therapy or some kind of a grounding that can bring you back and make you understand that it's all going to be okay, you know, and maybe you start with an animal might be the thing, because right now people are scary, or people, you're just not reacting to them in the right way. I could see how that could be a great, I call it a success story, but you know, success is just seeing people feel better, I'm sure. Success is seeing them be able to get back out in the world. And that is a big part of emotional recovery, getting back out in the world.
Exactly. And that's how I see it, even with our kids that are in recovery from whatever illness, or if they were in an accident. I always tell them, you're doing it. You're doing it the best you can do. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong. You're doing it. I just remember this with Tony. He would look at his tools, his grooming kit for the horse, and his brain would stop. And so we have this little, I do the thing about movies and things like that. And I would say, hey, you know, what movie do you know? So I talk about, you know, the Karate Kid. Everybody's seen the Karate Kid, right? So there's a lot of different things that we do with the grooming tools. And I would just say the movie, and it would click something in his head. And he's like, none of my therapists ever thought of that, Laurie. How did you do that? I said, I don't know. It just comes to me, things like that. And I use animals and everything. Like, so many times the kids are so scared of themselves. As little as a kitten can make them come out of their shell, you know. So I guess my story is that I just get to be there and listen and stand back, and sometimes that's all I need to do, and I get to be part of it, and it's really awesome.
Right, you know, you're in horse therapy, but you said too, animal therapy is it's more than we think it is, and it could be that, you know, you just get to hold a cat and pet it. You know, you just get, you know, to have a dog
chickens.
come in.
I mean, chickens. People think chickens, but chickens are really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's well, you know, really happy to have you on the program, and you know, enlighten us, and so you know how to do this. And so, are you on a farm?
I live on the site. We bought the property in 2002 to do this completely. I am looking for property to expand. There's property behind me that I have a rendering for. I want to actually do a learning center so schools can come and doctors can come and farriers that do horses can come. I have this big dream, and it's going to happen one day, and I know it's going to happen. And being on this today might be that person out there saying, wow, we could help them find that dream, because there's so many people out there that are hurting, that need recovery, and they need a safe place. And that's what a lot of my veterans, a lot of my volunteers, that even if they're in recovery, they come and say, Laurie, your little acre is our safe place. So I want to have this bigger facility one day to make it a bigger safe place for more people, and for therapists to come and understand maybe it's not all about being in the classroom or being in their studio or in their office talking. Sometimes it might be just being outside and smelling the air and seeing the sun, you know.
So, well, you know, just as we close up, tell the people who are listening, how can they reach you?
We have a great website. It's www.spirittherapies.org. Under that, there's different pages that you can become a volunteer. You can sponsor a horse, sponsor a veteran. There's always riders out there that we have to charge because we have to pay for our horses for care. We have small staff right now, but always just go to our website, and the phone number's on there too. The 702-219-1728 is my personal phone that I answer 24/7. Just come to our, give us a call and come for a tour. We'd love to have you. I'd love to bring the office out here and do a office mental health.
We probably could use it.
Yeah,
That would be a good thing.
It's really amazing because I know the ladies that came out to us, I said, we need to have you guys come out just to, it's very hard to explain it, but once you're in it, then you'll understand it because you're like, how does that work?
Yeah.
And it really is amazing. That's why I was saying the thing about shoveling the bucket, that's more visual, that you can shovel and put it in a bucket. But the horses give you hugs, horses breathe with you. It's amazing.
It is.
It's just really amazing to be a part of it.
Well, thanks for taking the time today.
No, thank
It's
you.
really wonderful. So that's it for us today. Thank you for being here for the Paul Padda podcast from Red Chimp Studios, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
That was great.
It's not about